Welcome back. Thanks for staying with us. We now want to switch gears. Of course, matters education still very important, but also we want to take a look at the state of politics in the country this week, bearing in mind at this time, two families mourning their loved ones who lost their lives in a very unnecessary set of circumstances on Sunday. We know that two sides of a political party engaging in blame games over what actually happened a whole 2 years to the 2022 elections. And we want to try and make sense of this. Joining me at this time, we have Wanjeri Ndero, communications consultant and activist, joining us on the program. We also have Honorable William Kabogo, former governor of Kiambu County, also joining us on the program, together with Irungu Houghton, who is the executive director of Amnesty International. To each of you, thank you for making time for us this morning. And I want to begin with Wanjeri. I trust you can hear me, Wanjeri. I'm sure you've had time to think through what happened on Sunday and just follow the news on the same as well. And the question is, what sort of investigations are you hoping to see from the police, even as, you know, we captured the tears and pain of the families that lost their loved ones? A 21-year-old, a 15-year-old, people with so much ahead of them in terms of their lives, now no more. What do you hope to see in terms of investigations to ensure that, you know, we get to the bottom of this and that we don't see incidents like this again, Wanjeri?
Good morning, Maura.
Good morning.
Glad to be here with you and to see you again. I think from my end, I'm not expecting much to come out of this, because if you follow even what the news is giving us, is that some of the intelligence about what is going to happen had already been relayed to some of the senior people in the political class and also police officers, and nothing was done. It is alleged that this thing was pre-planned. It is alleged that information about that altercation had already been given beforehand, but there was no action that was taken on it. So, going from past experience of what we have seen in Kenya, I'm not expecting anybody to take responsibility for it. In fact, I'll be pleasantly surprised if we actually have anybody outside of the park. So, hopefully, we are going to see some action. But what we're seeing is really sad, and it takes me back to the post-election violence of 2007, because this is how they start. This is how it starts. Starts with the tolerance, starts with the idea that politicians own areas and own the people in their area. That nobody should come to my space and I cannot take place. Kenya belongs to all of us. We cannot have kingdoms and spaces where people feel that they should not be, accepted by other people, without the permission or without their involvement. So we'll see some action, but I'm not putting too much hope on that.
Okay, thank you for that. Let me bring in Honorable William Kabogo, former governor of Kiambu County, to also weigh in on this. Honorable Kabogo, I don't know if you've had a chance to take a look at the paper. Page 2 of the Standard is reporting that a call from above okayed the release of police security that could have intervened in this situation. And without that security there, the Muranga situation did get out of hand. Let me get your thoughts on what you expect to see in terms of an investigation, even as the paper is alleging that it could be that police were withdrawn last minute.
Wahiga, good morning.
Good morning.
The first thing I want to tell you, Wahiga, is that I don't read papers.
Oh.
Because papers write all sorts of things. But if we assume that what is written there is correct or is true, then it's very, very unfortunate. I have a lot of pain myself, because what happened in our region. It is not people from Kisumu or people from Eldoret that are fighting each other, or they are coming here to fight us. It is Kikuyus amongst themselves. And this is happening 2 years before elections. I'd hate to imagine, if this is the trend, what is going to happen during the elections or a few months to the elections. It's very unfortunate. It should never have happened. And if the police have a hand in it, then how do you expect them to investigate? Who is these powers above? I thought this is a story of the old constitution. We're in a new era. Why would violence, why won't people allow people just to go do their campaigns, wherever time it is, even if it's not time for campaign? Let them do their thing. They'll come in and go. What is this thing that we are fighting about? It's very unfortunate, Wahiga. It's very little that I would want even to think. How'd you get out of this? You know, 2 people are dead, 15 and 21-year-old, Wahiga. How would you tell their families in the future what happened to their father? Is it because of political violence? Is it because William Ruto was coming to some church? Is it because Kibicho or whoever, Sabina, organized whatever it is? All these things, this is not something to be investigated over weeks. It should have been dealt with Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. The file should have been closed. And those culpable should have been taken to court by Wednesday today. But as usual, no stone will be left unturned.
Okay, and those are your views, William Kabogo. And of course, despite or in spite which county it happened in, it is a big shame, and you said it rightly, that under the new constitution, we are still hearing this, whether in Muranga or in any other.
I'm not saying it should have happened in any other county. I'm saying I'm ashamed because it's in my region. I'm very ashamed.
Okay. Irungu Houghton, we can also get your voice on this, and of course, also talk about the responsibility of the political class at a time like this, when we know, political temperature is sort of rising. What do you hope to see as responsible behavior from those who lead major groupings in the political class, Irungu?
Thanks, Wahiga. I think I'd like to start first by just offering condolences to the family of Chris Kariuki, the 21-year-old man who passed away, Peter Mbodhi, the 15-year-old boy, who also was killed during this horrible exercise. And sadly, they joined the list of people. And I remember from 2017, we had Pepe Kitamba, there was Churo Amaya, MCAs and parliamentary aspirants who were killed during the just before the 2017 elections. Electoral violence, sadly, is, it is as Kenyan as the red in our flag. And I just wish those two families a peaceful funeral and a moment to reflect on their lives and really to just condemn the political violence that took place. The Constitution is very clear on violence, and Article 81 states that all elections must be free of violence, they must be free of intimidation, they must be free of undue influence and corruption. And sadly, we know the triggers of political violence. I guess we've experienced them so many times that it is actually easy and fairly predictable to see what needs to happen. And I think there are probably three things that we need to see now. The first is essentially we need to get a resolution to the internal division within Jubilee. It is becoming a threat, not just to non-violent politics, but really to the lives that we've seen happen. And with a series of other campaigns taking place, I think that has to be resolved. It is not acceptable, I think, or even legal of the governor of Muranga, for example, to propose that he will MC all political functions going forward. There is no, it's not one of the functions of devolution, and it's also not one of the responsibilities that's assigned to his office. So that's a non-starter. The second thing is we have to see the discipline forces being used in a non-partisan and involved manner. And the reason they're called discipline forces is because they have a duty to protect all. And that is what the Constitution says. So in that sense, the IG is an independent body. He has to stand aside from the political parties and do his work effectively. I think the third thing that we probably need to see right now is we need to see independent assessments of what has happened. I think the claims that the deep state or aspects of the state are being used discriminatory against certain political formations of the country can only be dealt with independent institutions. The Independent Policing Oversight Authority, the Kenya National Commission for Human Rights, and human rights organizations need to come in and do their own assessment to just get to the bottom of what exactly happened, because we are hearing conflicting stories. It's not just that one political formation ferried people to that area. We are also hearing that other political formations organized to disrupt the transfer of people from Kiambu and from Nairobi.
I actually want Honorable Kabogo to respond to that and also tell us this. Irungu Houghton has spoken of the need for resolution of the internal division within Jubilee. It almost sounds like a call for a handshake in Jubilee. What are your thoughts on that, Honorable Kabogo?
Jubilee is irreparable. It cannot be fixed. From what I see, from what I know, from what I understand, Jubilee is a different story together. I mean, I said this before, Wahiga, that every election when we expect change of guard at the White House, at the State House, we always form new parties. Always. You remember in 2002, it was Kano versus Mwenge, and then come changeover from Kibaki to Uhuru. We had Jubilee or TNA and URP coming together. We will now find a new mass just for the purpose of elections. This country thrives and lives just within the electioneering mode. We started this thing in 2017 after the elections. And I said one thing about 2 years ago, that the only people who can bring political temperature down in this country are two, Mheshimiwa William Ruto and Mheshimiwa Raila Odinga. This is Kenya's problem. Now add Uhuru Kenyatta, it multiplies the problem. Why is it that people are allowed to do meetings now during COVID season? People are dying of COVID. And it's not, and if you look at the way the police are behaving, it's like one side is allowed to do meetings and another one is not. We've had meetings happening in Kajiado, Muranga, Atwoli, and them. Meetings happening in Western Kenya during funerals, and now stopovers of Rao, visiting places, Raila Odinga, and now WSR, William Ruto, visiting churches all over, having meetings, huge gatherings. And if you look at the gatherings, Wahiga, you will find 1 or 2 people amongst 10 have masks. So are we out of the COVID danger? No. But politicians, we are behaving like that American president. It's very unfortunate.
Okay.
And I will tell Kenyans, look again, these people do not need to be anywhere near leadership, because all they care is if they will be elected and if they will get positions. And you know, Kenyans, who we are, will continue voting them in. We will continue having them. It is either or. That is our nature. That is who we are as Kenyans. And it's unfortunate because we came out of The Hague 7, 8 years ago. We now seem to want to be headed there again.
We hope not.
Why is it that the country cannot develop? You know, when a country like the UK has elections, you know, one day I was having a cup of tea on Park Lane, and the Prime Minister just, walked in, and people don't even notice him, and it is during elections. When will we ever get there? Why is it that we survive and live on elections? What we can do to people doing in Muranga? You know, the church AIPCA is in Keno. What were these young men doing in Keno from Thika? They must have been ferried there. We have vans, we have already people are sending pictures through social media on how it happened. What more do the police want to be able to know what happened? We are hearing people being mentioned, blame games between Kieleweke and Tanga. And these are madness movements. It's not helping. It doesn't help, the common man get little more food on his table. So
let me interrupt you there. Let me interrupt you there to bring in Wanjeri and get some thoughts from her. One thing that we've had, Wanjeri, is that political parties are conveniently used to win elections and then ditch thereafter. Does that make it then difficult to keep these parties accountable when you know that they are basically briefcase entities used by owners for a limited period and then ditch thereafter? Let's start from that, even as you respond to what Irungu and Kabogo have said.
Sorry, one thing we've noticed and also from experience in this country is that our politics are not issue-based. They're personality cult-based. So the people who we are electing to be our quote-unquote leaders or saviors are more interested in themselves, their personal interests, and everything that they can be able to do to be able to make sure that they still maintain those positions. Sorry, my network is a bit,
it's
I don't know if I'm clear. Am I clear to you?
You're doing okay. Keep going.
All right. So I hear what Heshimiwa Kapogo is saying, and it is unfortunate that that is what keeps us going. We come from election to election. Nothing is done within those 5 years other than electioneering. And that is also saying about this corona issue. Corona is not selective. Okay, so has it disappeared now because we are back into the full, it's 2 years to elections, but it feels like the elections are tomorrow. So our country is sick. And the cure for this country is just not political education, it is to show people and to make sure we tell our people the reason why these leaders are in those positions. They're not in those positions to drive those cars, they're in those positions to serve you. And Kenyans still have not gotten that concept. When Mheshimiwa Kapogo is talking about the Prime Minister of the UK walking into a coffee shop, that is normal in other parts of the world, but it is not, especially in Africa. Because we base our politics on people, we base our politics on individuals, and not what they're supposed to deliver to us. So when you talk about, for instance, what happened in Muranga, it still saddens me that you see we have 2 young people who have died. For what? For what? I mean, in 2017, we lost about 1,300 people. For what? For individuals, not for our livelihoods, not us fighting for what is the rightfully ours as Kenyans. We died for people. Their families are not at the forefront. You will not find them and their children in those rallies. They're surrounded by bodyguards. But you're given 1,000 shillings and to go and die. I mean, it's a stupid, it's almost like, you know, somebody the other day was telling me this is witchcraft. It doesn't make any sense to some of us. You know, so we need to get Kenyans to a space where they not only demand that they as a people be served by these leaders that are put in power, and also we need to be sure who are we giving those positions. When I'm choosing person A, what am I choosing them for? Is it because they're from my tribe or because they can deliver?
Let me ask you a question, Wanjeri.
Yes.
Let me ask you this, and you've used interesting words to describe your frustration at this moment. But let's talk about economic empowerment. I know it's been said only 1,000 shillings, but to many possibly watching this program right now, 1,000 shillings will make a big difference for them. Talk to me about economic empowerment, because without that, people are still going to continue taking 1,550 shillings.
First of all, Maura, we have a culture of handouts in this country. And I think that culture is deliberately set so that they can be able to use these handouts to put us in a space where we make decisions based on our stomachs. And they do this by ensuring we are not getting jobs. They do this by ensuring our economy has collapsed completely through the theft of our resources. They steal from us everything that, from our taxes to the donor money, to donation, and we've seen it in this country. That is all they live for. They take those positions so that they're able to steal from us. And now, if that money doesn't trickle down to Mama Mboga, don't expect Mama Mboga to feed her sons, her daughters. What are those kids going to do? They're going to be misused by politicians. So it still goes back to the leaders that we elect. Are we giving people, are we giving the president of this country, for instance, the position to serve us because he deserves it? And he has a vision for us, and maybe, especially for the young people, does he have a vision to uplift them? Most of them don't. Most of them live for this election, to the next election, to the next election, to empower themselves, to make as much and amass as much wealth as they can. There's no regard whatsoever for the young people of this country and us generally as Kenyans.
Okay.
So it is to me, it looks like a deliberate way to keep us enslaved economically so they can use the culture of handouts to maintain their positions in politics.
Okay, interesting points that you've raised, which I want to now get some feedback from Irungu Houghton on. Irungu, you raised 3 issues that you feel are a big problem right now. 1, resolution of the internal divisions within Jubilee. 2, a further look at how the disciplined forces can remain neutral. And 3, independent assessment of what happened. I want to talk about your point 2 and your point 3. I'm looking at the Constitution of Kenya, Chapter 14, Article 244, an article I'm sure you're familiar with, the objects and functions of the National Police Service. And I want us to compare what the Constitution says and what you have seen, in your time with the kind of duties you've carried out as the 2010 Constitution was being rolled out. The Constitution calls for a National Police Service that strives for the highest standards of professionalism and discipline amongst its members, complies with constitutional standards of human rights and fundamental freedoms, and trains staff to the highest possible standards of competence and integrity, to respect human rights and fundamental freedoms and dignity, and finally, a police service that will foster and promote relationships with the broader society. How far, Irungu, do you feel we are from the ideals set out in the Constitution of what the National Police Service should be if this article on page 2 of the Standard is to be believed?
So I think, first of all, we have to recognize that the concept of our police and our intelligence services essentially being preoccupied only with regime security, and that is that they are loyal to the administration of the day, that sadly, in some quarters, that expectation is still there. It is, of course, unconstitutional. It is also dangerous in the sense that if we think about all of the elections where there have been large, mass political violence, it has been because the security forces have essentially broken ranks and supported one political formation over another, right? So it is predictable that if we go into this next elections with a police service that does not read Chapter 14 and does not act consistent with Chapter 14, we will have mass deadly political violence. It's just predictable. So I think for me, the key thing really is to think about what are the structures that are put in place. Many of us are in WhatsApp groups at the moment where people that had been talking very comfortably with each other for the last 2 or 3 years have started now to disagree very vehemently as a result of what happened in Muranga. This is the beginnings of a very polarized, divisive society. And our police service, our 150,000 police officers, are not different, no different from the rest of civilians in the sense that they also have personal political views. The key thing is that, of course, they are bound by oath not to take sides. And I think that is the key thing that needs to be thought through. I mean, the second point, I think, Wahiga, is important to recognize, I think, that this is not just a Kenyan phenomenon. So I don't think we need to beat ourselves up unnecessarily. We are not aberrations in the world. You know, in 2017, we saw the same thing happen in France with the xenophobic and racist, debates, electoral debates. In the United States of America, at the moment, there are, rising political tensions to the extent that Amnesty International USA issued an advisory saying that people should not be allowed to take guns, licensed guns, anywhere next to a polling booth. We can see across our border in Tanzania that very substantive political candidates are being denied the opportunity to campaign, or media is being shut out of reporting that election. So in some ways, the disinformation, the divisiveness of our politics is a global phenomenon. But we in Kenya have to act to ensure that this does not become our future also. And I think there are a couple of things here. At this point, we have to be thinking about, what are we doing with the Electoral Commission? How are we introducing, how are we investing trust in the electoral register? Are we beginning to look at campaign financing and the way that, a number of the candidates that have already started campaigning are using public resources, public vehicles, public security agencies, public property to campaign for the next elections? And lastly, I think we need to start creating a watch on compromised security officers, those that are essentially being co-opted either by those in power or essentially those that were in power.
Okay, thank you. And you've introduced new aspects, including a broader look at how police forces around the world or police services around the world are faring. Let me also get some thoughts from Honorable Kabogo. And Kabogo, on this one, we've heard from different political leaders their views on what actually happened in Muranga. Curious to hear if all of them could be right. For Honorable Raila Odinga, he says, stop early campaigns and you will reduce the chances of violence, while the Deputy President says, stop misusing state actors to frustrate our meetings. Is it possible that both of them could be right on this?
Now Raila is campaigning, my friend. He's telling William Ruto not to campaign. William Ruto is saying he's doing Harambee for churches, helping the hustler nation. All these are gimmicks. They are all campaigning. And if you watch carefully, you will find new developments coming on modes of campaign. If the president wants to stop this campaigning, he would stop it. If he has had occasions to be able to put curfews and people do not move, we should tell these leaders to stop moving.
Is that constitutional?
It is COVID time. He has a good excuse. If he cannot do it for any other reason, he should be able to put his foot down and say, no more public gatherings. And it's unfair when, the Honorable Raila Odinga says, stop early campaigns. But you see him touring and stopping in some market that has hundreds and thousands of people. So what would that be? So he is ready to bring in a BBI and start selling the BBI ideology all over. Will that not be part of campaigning? I do not believe any of them are serious about this issue of not campaigning. If they want to stop it, they can. But the clock is running, and some of them will not wait. It's unfortunate. Of course, it's happening in the world. Like the issue that Irungo is talking about of, it will not happen here. As long as Kebisho is answering calls from somewhere. As long as it will serve the government of the day.
Okay.
That is our position.
And those
so
are,
really,
again, those allegations, they are not here to defend themselves, but nevertheless carry on.
I have not alleged anything. I've just said the obvious, Wahiga. I mean, who is in charge of the police force? Who is the secretary in charge? Isn't it Kebisho?
Okay.
Isn't it Matiang'i? Yeah, you've seen the way Matiang'i behaves these days. So you want me to say anything else? It's obvious. Why substantiate the obvious? I've not alleged anything. I did not say that Kebisho was in charge of Muranga, but he's in charge of the security forces. Who is this that withdrew the forces in Muranga? I'm told that it was withdrawn the day before. For what reason? I'm not saying that William Ruto should go and do those harambes because he's also becoming a nuisance now, Okay. But I'm saying, where is fairness?
I think you can use more civil language in this debate, Honorable Kabogo. I think calling someone of the stature of Deputy President with that term is something I'd like to ask you to withdraw. I think calling it...
I probably didn't hear it.
The term, I don't want to repeat it because then we'll have a back and forth on that.
A nuisance.
As well, yes. I don't want you to repeat it, Honorable Kabogo. I think, let me ask you this. And a different question, Honorable Kabogo, get me on this one. One of the other big debates this week has been about the role of the church, and may I also add the role of civil society in keeping political players accountable. And in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, we saw them working very well in regards to this. But this week, there's been a big debate on whether these other independent sort of parts of our society are no longer playing their part in this. Let me get your word on that. Who can come in if the political class, will not be responsible?
The class itself, Wahiga, is very divided on this matter. You've seen some of them have come out very clearly and said, we want to go this road. In the 90s, you would have had the Reverend Joya and others coming together with civil society and saying, generally what is wrong. But today, what is wrong for some churches is right for other churches. What is this business about harambes? What is this business about? Every week, churches are collecting. I know churches need money. But why are we not able to say where we get this money to give churches to? We are talking about corruption. Every other sentence, there is corruption. Corruption by politicians is to finance their political agenda. That is why most of them are corrupt. And they will continue to be corrupt as long as we continue doing things the same way we do things. And this is where I say it's important sometimes to realize it's important to do the right things as opposed to doing things right. I'm not sure whether I come through on that one. But you expect now the AIPCA church to come in between and start, normalizing relationships between fighting politicians? No, they are angered by what happened on Sunday in their church. And if this continues, where will the church be? Because I expect the church to be a unifying factor. But when the church itself is involved, how do you expect them to unify? They probably need to get all the churches coming together to come up with a common front on how to deal with these issues.
Okay.
Wahiga, this is going to be a very serious issue in a few months. It will get to a place that we will not be able to control it.
Okay, and that's why we're having conversations like this, because hopefully we can enlighten the population on what they need to be aware of as the political class begins to make appeals to them. Wanjeri, let me come to you as well, and I want to repeat the same question to you. In the past, the church and civil society, and I want you to talk about civil society, do you feel that the voice of civil society is not the voice that it used to have 10, 20 years ago? I've had church leaders this week express that they have undergone a change of strategy, whereas in the past they would openly oppose the state or oppose things that they feel were not right in the country. Nowadays they do a lot of quote-unquote shuttle diplomacy. Is that the same for civil society? Do we have a civil society now that can keep a political class accountable if we see, God forbid, incidents like what we saw over the weekend?
Maura, I don't feel we are, as a civil society practitioner, that we are ready for what is coming. And as Irongo had hinted earlier, we belong in similar subgroups. And personally, I've had to withdraw from some of them because I feel that we are losing direction and that I feel that we are not speaking in one voice, that we already have factions and we already are split. And we are not split between what is right and what is wrong. We are split still about personalities. And this is also happening within civil society. And these are things that people do not want us to talk about, but they need to be said. They need to be said. It is about us as Kenya as a whole, not about who gains and who loses in terms of political positions. Now, civil society in the 90s was totally different. They were unified, they worked together, they came up with campaigns that educated people, we had a lot of civic education. But what do we have today? We have interests controlling what is even happening within our own spaces. So that saddens me in itself, because we find that a lot of us now are in situations where we are doing things in pockets and as individuals, and taking positions as individuals instead of taking positions collectively. And collective decision making and campaigning is more effective than if I am doing it as Wanjeri Njeru. But we don't have that unity within the sector. Okay, that is a fact. It is not something that they're comfortable for it to be discussed. When something is called out, we are told, or we are put in a space where we are made to feel that we are not supposed to be speaking about issues that are in the family out there. But there is no difference between us and them if we can keep ourselves accountable first, for us to be able to get to demand for accountability from them. So civil society today, for me, is lackluster. It is not strong as it should be, and we don't have a reason why they shouldn't be.
Is it a question of the intentions or motives of those who are core in it having been changed to become more possibly materialistic? Is it that there are fewer players now interested in really keeping government, state accountable? What would you say are possible reasons for why it is lackluster, as you have labeled it?
I don't think really, as much as there could be personal interest in some of these situations, but I think we've also joined Kenyans in being, the apathy of, or just feeling helpless about issues. We dropped the ball at some point, and we are unable to pick it up. We are feeling like every effort we are putting through is not working. Like, I'll give you a good example. This government has perfected the art of ignoring our constitution. Every time we fight for anything, just like, for instance, the food agenda rule, what happens? The government just looks at us and brushes it off. When we do anything that they're not following that should be, that is very clear in our constitution, they ignore it. It is also draining for us. Okay, so it's not that there's no effort. There is effort, but I think there is more we can do. There is more we can do, and that what means we come together, sit together. I am seeing efforts from some supporters, and I'm excited about it. There's some new development that came up the other day that I'm watching closely, and gotten me a bit excited that maybe perhaps there is hope.
Maybe perhaps.
Yes, maybe perhaps there is hope. But if we, civil society, are helpless and are showing the public that we are helpless, what is Mama Mboga supposed to do? We can be better than this, and we can do better than this. And this, I think, should be a challenge to all of us. It is not about who is supporting who, because we do have that, as Irongo had mentioned earlier. We do have that in our spaces, where you find people are divided about personalities instead of issues. So it may be a human issue, it might be a human reaction, but we need to drop our personal interests for the betterment of the whole.
Okay, I'm sure Irongo has a lot he wants to say on that, but because I don't want to cut him off halfway, let me take that break that I've been asked to do, and then when we come back, we get that reaction from Irongo, deal with one more issue, and then we'll wrap up this conversation as we look at the state of governance on the 7th day of October 2020. You're watching Daybreak. Stay with us. We'll be right back with so much more.